Well, good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Steve Trout, State Election Director. Secretary Clarno sends her regrets for not being here. She had a personal issue that required her assistance, and so she won't be here for this event, but she will be here for the event tomorrow, and looks forward to meeting with this distinguished group. I'd like to thank the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for working together with the Secretary and my team to put on this election security symposium tomorrow evening. It's going to take all of us working together to protect the integrity of the 2020 elections. Partnership really is the key. Representatives from county, state, and the federal government are working together to secure Oregon's election infrastructure. Because the federal government likes abbreviations, Oregon has a TIGER team. TIGER stands for Threat Information Gathering and Election Resources. And that team was put together about a year ago to help secure Oregon's elections. That team is really broad. It includes members of my team at the Elections Division, Department of Homeland Security, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, the FBI, the Oregon National Guard, Oregon Office of Emergency Management, the Cybersecurity Services section of the Oregon Chief Information Security Officer's Office, and we get together frequently to discuss issues, threats, and different things that we can do together with the different resources that we all have to be able to help to protect Oregon's elections. So 3 years ago, these partnerships really weren't that developed and didn't really exist, but there's really been a lot of coordination and cooperation that gives me a lot of confidence that our elections will be secure as we go forward in this 2020 cycle. One of the other main partners with us is our county election officials, and so to have that partnership of both county, state, and federal officials working together to protect Oregon's elections helps me to sleep at night. Even with all of these resources, the partnerships that we've been able to develop, the knowing who to call that has the resources to be able to help, it really falls upon all of us individually as informed voters to be able to help make sure our elections are secure. We have to protect our democracy by not falling for misinformation or disinformation, for looking at the facts, asking questions, and not being fooled by misinformation. The things that we talk about for election security are things that people should do, in their personal lives or in their other businesses. We need to have strong passwords. We need to make sure that we patch our computers. We need to make sure that we be careful about which links we click on. Those are all things that we all have to worry about and protect against living here in the 21st century. But again, it gives me great confidence to be able to work with these federal partners along with our county partners to be able to secure elections. And I look forward to the event tomorrow night, where I believe it's the first time that we've been able to include candidates in these trainings and understanding the threats and the resources that are out there. Candidates are just as vulnerable, just like I said, as all of us are, and so helping them to be able to navigate the cybersecurity issues for the 2020 cycle is important. And we're glad, again, thanks to these two gentlemen and their agencies for the opportunity to be able to present this tomorrow.
Morning, everyone, and thank you, Director Trout.
The wrong way.
That's all right. Good morning. I'm Bill Williams. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the District of Oregon, and I appreciate you all being here today. Protecting our nation's democratic processes, including our elections, is among the Justice Department's top national priorities. Malign foreign influence operations targeting our elections and electoral process are among the most pressing threats our nation faces as we go into the 2020 election cycle. The Justice Department, including the FBI, plays an important role in investigating and disrupting these activities and others that threaten our national security. We do this in a number of ways. Like any other type of federal crime, the FBI pursues tips and leads to identify, investigate, and disrupt illegal foreign influence activity. The Bureau then works with our department and other Justice Department components to evaluate if and when federal charges are warranted. Foreign influence campaigns can violate several federal criminal statutes, including the Foreign Agents Registration Act, also known as FARA. The Justice Department's investigations support not only our pursuit of criminal charges, but also other actions of the United States government. These may include various diplomatic, intelligence, military, and economic responses. We do our best, when appropriate, to share the information we gather through our investigations to alert targets of influence operations and the general public. These targets could be individual campaigns, interest groups, and public entities. In some circumstances, malign influence operations can be rendered less effective by educating the public and sharing that important public safety information. And finally, one of our most important responsibilities and the reasons that we are here today is to assist election officials and candidates to increase their own resilience and ability to recognize and combat malign influence. Tomorrow evening, alongside partners from the Oregon Secretary of State's Office, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, Oregon Criminal Justice Division, and Facebook, we will provide a joint training for candidates and election officials from across the state of Oregon. Our goal is to provide steps each can take to mitigate threats they might receive throughout this election season and beyond. It's important to note, however, that our efforts here are a proactive attempt to mitigate threats. They are not responsive to any known threats to Oregon-based groups, officials, or elections. In delivering this training, we are mindful that the state of Oregon and its localities are responsible for administering federal elections under Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. We are committed to supporting elections across the state of Oregon. Oregonians should have the utmost confidence in their election officials. Director Trout, Secretary Clarno, and others work tirelessly to ensure the security and fairness of elections throughout the state of Oregon. Our goal is simply to help, to offer our collective knowledge and expertise so these campaign and officials are better equipped for the task at hand. The nature of malign foreign influence operations will continue to change as technology and our adversaries' tactics evolve. One thing is certain, the threats will persist. They will continue trying to exploit a process inherent in what it means to be an American. That is our electoral process. The Justice Department plays an important role in combating interference attempts in our elections, but at the same time, we cannot and should not attempt to address this problem alone. There are limits to what we can do. Combating influence operations requires a whole community approach that relies on coordinated actions by federal, state, and local government agencies and support from the private sector, and an active, informed, and engaged public. That last component is one of the most important, I believe, to combating this issue. I want to thank all the organizations who've partnered to make tomorrow's election security briefing possible, and especially the campaigns and officials who plan to attend. As I said at the outset, this is an incredibly important issue for all Americans, and here in the state of Oregon, we're doing our best to partner to make sure we can combat any threats that are brought our way. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ren Cannon, and I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the FBI here in the state of Oregon. In America, democracy comes to life during our elections, and voters have the chance for their voices to be heard. Our elections truly are the foundation of who we are as a nation. As with many things, states and counties do the lion's share of conducting elections and protecting the voice of each voter. We're fortunate in Oregon that this work is done so well by our state and county officials. In the FBI, we're proud to collaborate with great partners at the county, state, and federal level to protect the 2020 election. This work is one of our top priorities. In the information age, threats to our elections move at the speed of light. The FBI's role in protecting election voices is to investigate violations of our constitutional rights and prevent those violations if possible. An example would be past investigations of deceit, intimidation, or violence designed and intended to prevent legitimate votes. A more modern example would be cyber intrusions, which disable or hamper our ability to conduct business or to communicate. Even more recently, as Bill alluded, we've seen the threat of disinformation campaigns from foreign adversaries operating on social media platforms. These influence operations seek to weaken our democracy by sowing false or incomplete information specifically designed to provoke conflict and distrust among us. Our foreign adversaries understand it's still true in America that united we stand, divided we fall. In many cases, we may not be able to stop foreign governments from posting false or incendiary information, but we can encourage American voters to keep a healthy skepticism, to consider the source of information and who stands to gain from it, and to corroborate information by checking other sources. To further guard against today's threats, the FBI has launched the Protected Voices Initiative. At the FBI's website, fbi.gov/protected voices, we provided tools and resources to help political campaigns, companies, and individuals protect against online foreign influence operations and cybersecurity threats. Many of these resources and tools will be explained during the Election Security Symposium tomorrow evening in Salem. I want to recognize the great leadership at the Oregon Secretary of State and the Oregon U.S. Attorney's offices in providing this training opportunity. This symposium is just one example of the many proactive efforts underway in Oregon to secure the 2020 election. In closing, I want to express my thanks for the fantastic partnerships with county, state, and federal partners and the tremendous work that's going on each and every day to protect the 2020 elections. Thanks, and we'll take some questions.
Director Trout, can I ask you, Tim Gordon with Channel 8 KGW, can you give us some reaction to what's happening in Iowa and whether you think that messes with people's perceptions of the security of our elections, the safe running of our elections in this country?
Well, I will say I flew back from D.C. last night and was on a plane for 6 hours and got up this morning and came right here. So I've only seen a little bit, but I think we need to wait and see what's actually happened. A lot of times when there's new systems that are rolled out or new protocols, if there's not enough training or not enough testing, there can be challenges. At this point, I haven't seen anything to suggest that the integrity of the election has been compromised. And so, again, in the spirit of not spreading misinformation or disinformation, let's figure out what the facts are, and then we can and then we can evaluate, what happened, what are the impacts, and what can others do to make sure that doesn't happen, here in Oregon or in other states.
Just to follow up on that, I read that it was a mobile phone app that they were using in the Iowa caucuses. Is this fiasco an argument in favor of, Oregon's way of paper ballots and to maybe steer away from, technology that, although they're saying this isn't a hack, but that type of technology could be vulnerable to a hack?
So I will say our vote-by-mail system provides a lot of security advantages. Again, I just got back from a conference of all the state election directors, and there's more and more discussion, more and more questions about, hey, can vote-by-mail help us? And my answer is always yes. Obviously, we've been doing this for over 20 years now, and there's a lot fewer places that someone could get in and target our elections. I've only got 38 places in the state that I have to secure. Each of the 36 counties, and we've got one server here and one in Baker City. Whereas if you've got polling places, you can have hundreds, thousands of places that you have to secure, and also have logistical challenges of sharing those results and the ballots, getting them back to the central warehouse. So yes, vote by mail provides a lot of security protections, and makes it harder for somebody to tamper with.
Just a tiny follow-up. You mentioned a server in Baker City. Is that a redundancy, or is that in addition, it handles additional data to the one in
So that's a redundancy, and so that's for our central voter registration database, so that if something were to happen to one of them, we can fail over there, and each of them has multiple sources of power, and so trying to be as resilient as possible, because again, I think that's really the best thing that election administrators can do, is to make our systems as resilient as possible.
Steve, have you received any update on whether the ransomware attack in Tillamook County had affected voter registration databases there?
Right. So there has been no impact on the voter registration system or any of our systems from the Tillamook County ransomware situation. Immediately upon being notified, we inactivated all of the IP addresses that come into our system and deactivated all of the user accounts until things can be resolved and we can figure out exactly the scope. And that's part of our standard operating procedure when we have an incident like this. And so it was good for us to be able to, that's the wrong word, it's not good, but it gave us an opportunity to put some of those processes and procedures in place, or in play, to be able to see what we would do and how quickly we could take those actions. And so,
Like you said, that was going to be my follow-up.
right, and I will say one of the things that I also learned through that experience is how well coordinated our Tiger team is with all of our federal partners in the counties, because within just a couple of hours, I'd been in contact with the FBI, with CISA, with Office of Emergency Management, with the state CIO's office, and there were federal and state resources that were made available. And 3 years ago, I wouldn't have known who to call. Today, I know who to call and have their cell phone number to be able to get it any time. I don't want to hog the podium, guys.
Well, I just wonder, it seems like I'm trying to figure out what you guys came here to announce. It seems mostly that you're working together as you have been for a while, and there's a symposium. I mean, is there something new? Can you take us through new threats you're seeing since 2018, or? Maybe this sounds naive. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what we're here to talk about. Is it just that we've been working together for a while and we're still working together, or?
So I think that's a big piece of it. I mean, you may have seen, there was some polling a couple of weeks ago that said that I think 43% of the public doesn't think that election administrators are doing anything to secure the elections. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. I've got conference calls, I've got secure briefings, I've got classified briefings. I'm working with these gentlemen and their teams all the time. And so I think, in my mind, the purpose of this and really the symposium tomorrow night is to let candidates, county election officials, the public know that we are really working this, and that they can have confidence that the elections are secure, and that the biggest threat to elections, honestly, in 2020 is the misinformation. And so we need all of us to be a part of that to prevent the bad things that can come from misinformation being spread.
So just in terms of actual sort of cyber threats to our system that you guys are constantly battling back, is there anything new or more pronounced in the last 2 years since 2016, or I guess the last 4 years or since 2018 that we're seeing today?
I'm not seeing any of that, and I'm confident that if there were more things, that I would hear about that. And so, obviously we're under watch. It's not just us. We get information shared from other states to know if there's challenges going there. And so, really, as far as the election infrastructure, there's really not any new threats that I've been aware of. That doesn't mean that I'm inviting them, obviously, but we continue to work hard and anticipate and work with our federal partners that help us with things to look at. We've got more things done as far as vulnerability scans, penetration tests. My county election folks are getting upset with me because I've sent them a couple of phishing campaigns to try to trick them into clicking on something, and so it's really helping to educate them, because if any one person clicks on something, that can give entrance into the systems, and so we're in a stronger position now than we were in 2016, and obviously in 2016 we were able to successfully block any attacks.
Talk a lot about misinformation. I think somebody mentioned that Facebook going to be at the symposium as well tomorrow. So I guess what are they going to bring to the table in regards to educating the folks that are going to be there as well as the public?
So my understanding is Facebook's going to come and talk, especially to the candidates and to the counties, on the resources that Facebook has if people identify misinformation that's out there, and different strategies that they can implement. Different tools that show those trusted resources. Like on a number of the social media sites, you can, as a government agency, you can get a separate indicator on your account to show that you're trusted info, and so just trying to inform the county governments and then also the candidates on the different resources and tools that are out there on ways that Facebook and other social media can help to combat the misinformation.
I'd like to ask your federal partner.
Thank you.
About
We knew that Steve was going to answer a lot of these questions.
Senator Wyden has said it's going to be even worse this election cycle than it was 2 and 4 years ago. And he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, so he has access to classified information. What is it that you're seeing? What are the types of attempts or infiltrations or things that are going on? Can you give us some more specific examples, and also what you might be suggesting tomorrow to candidates and election officials to do in response?
I think it's a great question, and I think it sort of gets to the earlier question of, well, what's new here? What really is new is the growing sophistication of the threats. So both the cyber threats, those ransomware attacks, business email compromise, cyber hacking, those have become increasingly complex and sophisticated over the years. The days of a email that has obvious misspellings and a ridiculous premise, that's not what happens these days. What happens now is a very sophisticated, very difficult to detect link or come on, specifically designed to the individuals to get them to click on the link. Or a ransomware attack that's very sophisticated in terms of the software that can lurk in the system into an information system for an extended period of time, and then the switch can be flipped at just the right time to maximize the ransom demands, and the pressure on a particular information system. So this is the growing partnerships that we're talking about, the growing sophistication in terms of protecting these elections. These partnerships are necessary from the local, county, state, federal levels. So these growing partnerships really are, the response. In terms of what we're seeing, it really is just that growing sophistication. And I think our response has become, and I think Steve has done a great job just outlining just how good it is here in the state of Oregon. It's a great team, and that partnership really is necessary. And as Bill alluded, it really is incumbent upon not just the government agencies at the state, local, and federal level, but also on individual voters to educate themselves on how does this stuff look and make sure I'm an educated voter, and on companies. So Facebook plays a big role, and making that available, like what is Facebook going to do, how can you call? That communication and that partnership is really how I think will make progress in making sure that the election stays secure. Does that answer the question? Yes, sir.
And Wyden has also talked about wanting to move from the Oregon's mail-in ballot system. He's advocating for it to be a nationwide thing. Do you think that that's possible, that we could convert the rest of the nation to mail in their ballots?
I got your back.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So I don't know that I can answer that question. I mean, because of course an easy answer is if there's a process and a system that ensures protecting voters' rights to make decisions, then the nation should look at that. The reality is, that, and this goes back, sir, to your question a moment ago, sort of like, well, okay, this sounds cool, but why are we here? I can't think of a more important right to be protected than that of American voters, to vote their conscience and beliefs, irrespective of whatever your beliefs are, or party or non-party. And so there's been so much attention drawn to this because of since 2016 and the coverage of this, and you tie this in with the realities of the internet and all the wonderful, great things about the internet. We've also discovered just how, frankly, dangerous aspects of the internet and media, social media, and interference, foreign interference, you name it. So it's kind of a brave new world, isn't it? So what we feel so strongly about in creating these partnerships is making sure that the fundamental right of people to vote and have it count, and not interfered with misinformation and all the various kinds of threats that have been identified and those that haven't been identified yet. That's why we're here. That's why this is so important, because it is, in the United States we have a number of constitutional rights that people hold very dearly, and those of us in government service take an oath to uphold the rights and the laws and to protect. And again, I can't think of a more valuable, more meaningful right than that of being able, as a citizen of the country and this state, to vote. So that's why what we do is so important, and we're all very excited about the symposium tomorrow evening and what those in attendance are going to learn from the experts who will be speaking, including from the private sector, because it's very important components beyond the government is what can the private sector do, those in the social media business and in the internet, what they can do to work with citizens who want to exercise their right to vote. There's a lot of responsibility that goes around, but fundamentally, as a voter, I want to know that my vote is counted and done so correctly, and that we're doing what we can as individuals to guard against what can be very complex and influential interference by people who don't mean well, bad people, which brings us into the mix in terms of what we do on a daily basis. So I can't overemphasize what I view as the most important part of this is we're working to protect the votes of American citizens here in the state of Oregon.
Quick follow, Eric with Channel 8. So we're all pretty much aware of the high-tech threats, but how important are the low-tech threats? And, an example, voter ID, that kind of.
No, I think election administrators have been in a, focused on security for, 50 years. Up until the last few, it's been focused on physical security, and we do a great job at that. Securing the ballots, from when they come in, the process of opening them, storage, all of the different steps, signature verification, all of those steps, and we do a good job of that. There's the rule of two. There should be nobody alone with a live ballot. There should always be at least two people anytime that there's live ballots being addressed. And so, So we've got a lot of experience and history there, and frankly, physical security is still prime because in order to be able to get into our vote tally systems, you're going to have to physically get access to those machines because they're not connected to the internet, and so you physically have to get in and get access to those. And so, I don't want that to be lost, the key importance of those physical security measures. And so we've actually got our protective security advisor from the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency out doing assessments of all 36 county election offices, both physical security and cybersecurity, to see what those vulnerabilities are so that we can work to address those. And so, yes, physical security is continues to be right at the top of the list. And then back to your question about vote by mail spreading, a lot of people don't realize that there are now 5 states in the U.S. that are entirely vote by mail. So we started it, Washington followed us, and then Colorado followed them about, I think, in 2013. And then just in the last 2 years, Utah and Hawaii have gone to 100% vote by mail. And so that trend is growing. What we're really seeing is states that used to require an excuse to get an absentee ballot are eliminating that requirement. And so that's really going to open the floodgates, I think, to people being able to use absentee ballots in those other states. And so again, from my the last few days with the other state election directors, I've gotten a lot of questions just about working with the post office and what are things that you've learned over 20 years that can help us, things that we don't have to suffer on our own. And so there's definitely a growing interest out there and more people looking at that compared to even just 5 or 6 years ago. And so that's encouraging, and I think we continue to show that this is a very voter-centric way of voting that focuses on the voters and gives them as much flexibility as options as possible.
So just to follow on that, and sorry, I'm from Oregon Public Broadcasting. I read a study from 2018, I think it was the Center for American Progress, and it gave Oregon pretty high marks on a lot of things. One of the things it raised was that we apparently, I don't know much about this, but allow faxed or emailed ballots from overseas if people are stationed over there or living over there, and they raised that as an issue, a potential security issue. Is that still something we do, and is it potentially a place where we should be tightening up our...
So, that's allowed within current Oregon statute, and for only military and overseas voters to be able to return their ballots via fax. That was the law, and then I think in 2012 we got the law changed to include email because email was more accessible and frankly more secure than fax. But I think, again, this is evaluating risk, and so you may be aware that last year there was concern that the U.S. was going to opt out of the Uniform Postal Union, which would have just been chaos because that impacts the flow of ballots between countries, and that was right before the November election, and so we were working on different protocols of ways to be able to transmit that, and so it takes a while for international mail to get here. We mail things out at least 46 days before the election, so that there's more time for those ballots to go in transit. But the legislatures have made the determination that fax and email are good alternatives just for those limited populations.
I'm sure it's small, but the question's not about what's legal, right? It's about what's secure. I mean, is that in your mind a potential risk point?
Well, I think that's partly why we went to email over fax, because that was more secure and able to have more security protocols attached to that.
Thank you all for your time.